Let me start with the idea of the TED, the series is from idea to impact, right? It's an impressive idea to talk about. It's a powerful phrase. So it's a powerful phrase, and what I want to talk about is the fact that there is a messy middle here, right? It looks like, hey, you have an idea, you have a great journey, and then voila, the world changes. But that's not the truth. There is a messy middle out there, and what we're talking about is the elephant, not in this large room, but we're talking about money, and how do you get your idea to be funded? If you're an investor today, and I'll take you through what an investor thinks through for the next 10 minutes. I'll take you through some of the questions that you should ask yourself if you have an idea and how do you take it to the next level, right? So let's face it, in this world of generative AI, ideas are worth a dime, right? I could create ideas at the click of a button, right? So now we're asking, how do you get the idea to become that the gold mine, right? So let's talk about something like Intel, right? When Intel started and these two legendary founders thought of doing something on a chip, but it was Arthur Rock, the legendary, again, venture capitalist, who decided to invest into them, who suggested, hey, look, there is a world which will change because of microprocessors. And that is how Intel became what it was. Without Arthur Rock, it would have been very difficult for Intel to become what it was. On that note, let's talk about putting ourselves in the shoes of the investor. First thing, if you need to really raise money, is to understand how do you put yourself in the shoes of the investor. The investor is looking for three things majorly, right? This is conviction, there is clarity and consequence. Do you yourself have conviction of what you're building? Right? Do you have clarity in how do you take it to the next level? And then what's the consequence? It's a feel good, or is there a result out there? Is it a multiplier effect, right? Now that's important to understand. And let me now break down to the color of the money. I still don't know what you guys are looking at, so because the TV here is off. But let me break down to the color of the money. Money has some specific characteristics, and we'll talk about that, right? Money is cautious. It waits for signals. Money has the idea of, it's a tool at the end of the day. It's not the end result, right? It likes to multiply, and money waits for signals, as I said. So we need to, and most importantly, money is emotionally intelligent. When I say that, I'm saying, hey, look, we analysts look very cold, we investors look very cold, but in general, we are also human, right? And I'm back on track with this, right? We are also human, and we have the biases. So let me cover each of these points a little more deeper. What do I mean when I say money is cautious, right? Money looks for signals. If you are telling me, hey, look, I am having this idea, I want to understand, are you committed? I have seen lots of people who say, hey, look, I have this idea, but I still want to continue my job at Microsoft, and then, till I don't get the funding, I wouldn't give up the job. Now, that doesn't work for me, right? You give your commitment first before asking me the 10 crore check. So that's what it is about the commitment. Show some traction, show a pilot, talk to your customers, understand the market, and come to me with the idea that, hey, look, I can do this traction. Finally, do you have the clarity? Do you have a business plan that will take you from point A to point B? Do you have the access to the resources like mentors? Do you have advisors? Are you connected to the right people in the ecosystem to help you grow? Now, these are questions that are asked, and these are questions that need to be answered for you to get your idea to be funded. Archimedes is attributed to this idea of, having a long stick and I'll move the world. The idea is, if money is the tool and it can really move the world, how will you, and it is not the end goal. I think the main point, when I hear people saying, hey, look, there's a great idea and I want the money for that, I don't understand. I want to understand the actual journey. I want to understand what are the steps that you'll take to make my money multiply, right? And that's the reason why money is just a tool and not the end goal. It is the belief that is important. It is the belief that you have, and hence, you're impressing upon me also that, there is a strong conviction for this idea. Now let me talk a little more on the emotionally intelligent part, and I'm covering the intelligent part here. We investors, right, are pretty analyzing things, etc. So let's say you tell me an idea of, you're building an app for serving passengers on the Indian Railways, right? As soon as you tell me, there's a word cloud going in my head, right? The word cloud is something like this. It tells me, hey, look, it's a large market, there's a problem to be solved, but it also tells me, look, there can be regulatory issues. It tells me, hey, it's a logistic nightmare. It's a margin business, right? So these are already going ahead in my mind. As soon as you told that idea, within 15 seconds, I'm already thinking ahead, what are all the problems that I can, or what are all the points that I can think of. On the same note, let's say you tell me about a cybersecurity startup, right? And you're talking about the word cloud that comes to me, that I get associated with from a cybersecurity startup is talking about, hey, look, is it a strong product? Is the team there really to build it? The business is mostly in the West. Revenues are still being questioned, things like that, right? Now, these are the word clouds you need to anticipate. And when you pitch to me, or when you get an idea to me, right, you need to start thinking how this cloud doesn't become dark and starts raining, but how does it become a sunlight, right? How does the ray of suns fall through? And for that, these are the secret sauce. This is the mantra for you to think about, right? You need to think about, is there a clear problem, right? Is there a need out there? And that's very essential. Do you have the right team to really grow this idea into the next level? That's crucial again, right? Is there a paying customer, and why would they pay? How much do they pay? Do you know that? Most people ignore this aspect of the customer. Is there a growth which will clearly see? Is it a 100 crore idea, or is it a 10 crore idea, or is it a 1,000 crore idea? You need to ask yourself that. And as soon as I see an idea, I can already think of all this, right? And finally, what's an exit strategy for such an idea? You could leave that part to me, but the rest is where you need to already be sure. Remember, at an early stage, when you're building an idea, we are still investing in people. So you need to, we still believe that people are the reason why we are investing into startups at the early stage. And it's not about the products. It's not even about perfection, but it's about persistence. It is not about the answers, but adaptability. It's a long journey. An idea to impact is a long journey. Do you have the perseverance and the adaptability? And that's the mood of any idea to impact journey, right? That's our logo, but it signifies the multiplying effect that money needs when it needs to be invested. Question is, hey, look, let's say I'm building a lab-grown diamond business, right? Now, can I build it to 1,000 crore, and what will it mean? Will it mean an offline plus online business? How much money do I need to grow that to 1,000 crore? That's the question to be asked. And that's when ideas can be separated from the ones, the right and the wrong. Remember, 99.99 plus ideas really don't see any light of the day, right? They get shelved. They're in notebooks, they're in PowerPoints. Now the question is, does your idea have the merit? And the questions that we went through are some of them like a framework, if I may, to help you understand that. And can you grow it such that there can be exit? There can be an IPO, there can be an acquisition or a secondary sale. So these are the points that one should think about to go from the bridge of an idea to the impact. One more thing I don't see often is your story. Look, when you tell your story, and many of my co-speakers did that amazingly well, people relate to it, right? Tell me your story. Let's say, for example, you are in the hospital industry, right? And then you saw doctors go through a lot of stress. You decided to build a mental health wellness app for doctors. Now that's a great idea because you know why you're building it. Or you are in the maritime business and you understand the whole logistics by sea, oceans, etc. is inefficient, and you're building an app to improve that inefficiency. Now I appreciate because you have the background. You know why it's a pain point. And that's why you need to tell your story when I'm always listening for the story when people approach me with the idea. So we need to move from the question asked, hey, look, will you give money for my idea? To the question asked, have I made my idea fundable? Now that's the question that you need to ask yourself before you ask for the money. And for this, you need to answer some of the other points, right? Is it a real problem? Are you committed yourself? Is there a clear team, etc.? And the growth strategy. Following these would help you, grow a time or an idea to a unicorn, right? And that, I think, that will help us. So the question moves away from the idea of fundraising, because fundraising becomes a part of the journey then. And that would help us. That's how, folks, we would bridge the gap between an idea to the impact. Thank you so much.